Thanks, Amanda, and thanks to the staff and everyone for putting this together. As Amanda said, I'm David Frank. I'm a Mellon Postdoctoral Fellow in Philosophy in the Cogut Institute. My research and teaching in environmental philosophy focus on ethics and values in environmental sciences, especially in conservation biology and ecology, environmental health research, and environmental economics. Most of my philosophical work has involved showing how values and ethical debates are embedded within these environmental sciences. And I'm currently interested in science and values controversies about invasive species, economic growth, and environmental health research ethics. And for the next couple minutes, I'll use invasive species as an example to bring out some of the questions I think about in my research. So you might be asking yourself, what is an invasive species? So ecologists, conservation biologists, and specialist invasion biologists often define invasive species as biogeographically non-native species introduced by humans that establish populations, grow, and spread particularly quickly, their populations having significant impacts on the recipient ecosystem. In other contexts, especially for conservation and biosecurity policy, invasive species has a more explicitly value-laden definition as introduced or non-native species that are likely to cause harm to humans or the environment. Classic examples here include weeds like kudzu, pests like the cane toad, pathogens like chestnut blight, and introduced predators like cats or pythons. But these definitions raise many questions in environmental philosophy and environmental ethics. Firstly, why does biogeographic origin, or where a species initially evolved, matter? What values are presupposed when conservation biologists take biogeographic origin or anthropogenic or human-caused dispersal to be important? Some scholars have argued that conservation biologists' preference for native species implies a kind of xenophobia, or that it reflects an outdated and culturally specific ideal of untouched, pristine nature or wilderness. Others have argued that the military metaphor of invasion is too resonant with social xenophobia and social nativism to be ethically responsible. Relatedly, others argue that in the context of global anthropogenic environmental change, the very idea of native species is becoming increasingly dubious, and it is potential ecological impacts that are important in thinking through questions in conservation and ecosystem management, not where species came from. Others defend the relevance of biogeographic origin, arguing that native species ought to be protected because of the value of ecological diversity, and that the introduction of non-native species is risky for evolutionary, ecological, and other reasons. Secondly, how do we define environmental harm? In the case of harms to, say, human agriculture or human health, it's relatively easy. Feral hogs, for example, reportedly cause more than $1 billion of damage annually to US agriculture and threaten habitat for several federally listed endangered species. But other cases are far less clear. Skeptics of invasion biology often point to ecosystem services performed by introduced species, even some that are considered damaging invaders. The question of environmental harm raises all of the classic issues in environmental ethics. Harm to who? Harm to what? Can an ecosystem itself literally be damaged or unhealthy due to introduced species? Or is this a metaphor for some other kind of harm? If protection of native species is important to conserve ecological diversity, as increasing movement of species across biogeographic areas decreases the differences between ecosystems, why is ecological diversity important? Finally, how should invasive species be managed ethically, if at all? How should conflicts between populations of sentient vertebrates like feral hogs and the broader environment be resolved, and who should be involved in making these decisions? Do novel biotechnologies offer solutions to invasive species management issues, or are these too risky or otherwise ethically problematic? In my research, I explore various answers to these questions, attending to both scientific and ethical arguments, looking to illuminate how these are intertwined. I aim to produce philosophical research that will engage broader communities across disciplines and connect the two cultures of the sciences and the humanities. Thank you all for listening.